I decided to stay an extra day with the dwarves and learn more about their family operation. The idea of joining the Sons of Solon remained absurd to me. I mean, for one thing, they'd have to change the name to the Sons of Solon, plus one useless, unrelated, not even a dwarf guy. In the morning, I was informed that Osrin had business to attend to, but the other dwarf by the name of Pipkin would be showing me around. Pipkin was a friendly sort. Might have been the youngest son of Solon. He took readily to the role of tour guide, showing me around the bastion, which was really little more than an outpost. Everywhere I went, dwarves were working with the strange blue metal, aquastain. In fact, I wasn't even convinced that it was metal. A dwarf had given me a pipe to smoke, with the blue aquastain powder in it, and it had an aroma that I couldn't quite describe, but surely it had to be organic.
Not telling. I mean, I could, but...
I sighed. Then you'd have to kill me. Yes, I get it. Pipkin was a bit of a broken record when it came to family secrets. He wouldn't tell me where the mineral was harvested from, since I hadn't seen anything that looked like a source. He wouldn't tell me if it was an animal or mineral. He wouldn't tell me how they started smoking the stuff in the first place. He did have a few tidbits of information to offer. Most days, we spend the morning collecting it. But some days, like today, we just have a lot of extra. So, we get right to work. I see. And how do you collect it, exactly? Not telling, chirped the dwarf, following up predictably with, I could tell you, but then I'd have to kill you. I really wondered if another dwarf might have been less childish than this one, but it was too late to make that trade. Not all dwarves worked on the same blue material. One dwarf was specifically pounding glowing globs of silver metal into nails. The finished product was organized into piles depending on their size. There were tons of them. Is that all he does? Make nails? Doesn't that get boring? Of course not. Smithing is never boring, replied the dwarf. And nails are doubly exciting. They're the glue that holds everything else together. Except for things held together by actual glue, of course. Or wax, or tape, or honey, or tar. Pipkin continued listing the vast quantities of adhesives, and my attention wandered elsewhere. Dwarves were grinding the aquastain into powder, or carving it into bracers, or liquefying it and creating cubic shapes out of it, or perfect spheres. One dwarf was slicing it into paper-thin sheets, using some kind of machine I hadn't seen before. A recent memory rose to the surface. Hey, I thought you didn't process this stuff. The caravan master said that you only sell it to him in its raw form. The dwarf nodded. Half right. We only trade on processed pieces. Some things just aren't for sale. Ah, I said. It was curious, though, that the dwarves clearly were smithing with this material, and yet had no intention of selling the finished product. The dwarves as a whole were curious. They lived in the midst of the most inhospitable land, and one that I was very sorry to re-enter when the time came for me to part the outpost. Obviously, I was troubled. Whilst I was amongst the Sons of Solon, I had been able to forget for a moment that I had been a hunted man. Now just meters outside the stone pillars that served as entryway to the bastion, I was once again faced with a grim reality. Somewhere, out there, people were searching for me, and when they found me, they would kill me. And there was no girl with violet eyes coming to my rescue. Grimly, I'd set foot on the path, heading back the way I came. Perhaps because it was the only way I knew. Going back to the slums never occurred to me, and why would it? I had been hunted in the city too, but I felt that the cloister of the Echo, at least, would be a safe haven for me, and maybe I could get some answers. I was starting to get why they called it a desert. It was deserted by all sensible forms of life, as well as the majority of insensible ones. Even the insects found it too inhospitable to make their home, and had left in search of greener pastures. I marveled at any sort of life that I found in the wastes. A sapling here, a snake there, some wriggling worms beneath a rock, a mouse-like creature with long hind legs. Were they all like me? out in the waste, just trying to survive in a world that didn't seem to offer them any comfort or safety. I spent a lot of my life alone, but there's a difference between being left alone with your thoughts and walking through endless nothing. I think my mind began to play tricks on me. I kept thinking I could see her, Arky, just up ahead, beckoning me onwards. When I ran to see, it was just me, alone in the wastes. The wind picked up, and I was faced with another dust storm. I sought high ground as before, but warily, for this time, I was alone. As the storm raged on around me, I kept low to the ground, trying to look like nothing, a rock on the side of the road. The storm passed, and I squinted my eyes, scanning my surroundings. But I was alone, as near as I could tell. No riders in black masks, no arcing, just another squall heading my way. The desolation was full of tempests and dust devils, and I wondered more than once if I should just turn back towards Bastion of Solon. But even as I wondered, I fancied I saw Arky beckon me forward a little further, and so I chased, only to find myself alone once more. Finally, I saw something familiar and welcoming, a caravan. 3 wagons in a row, halted up next to a large tree. Surely the same tree I had last seen Samuel Decare in his caravan at, as we parted ways en route to the Dwarven outpost. I wondered if it was the same caravan. I began to pick up the pace, and I could see smoke rising from the little pit. Perhaps they had made camp here, due to the storms. I hesitated. Would Decare be happy to see me? Would he turn me away? When we had parted, he had definitely not seemed keen on my company anymore. And who could blame him? I hadn't exactly brought him any good fortune. I wondered how I should approach the caravan. I expected they must have seen me by now anyways, knowing how careful Samuel was with his caravan runs. I expected it didn't matter. They were stopped along the roadside, so I would reach them one way or another. Ouch! I exclaimed, as I struck my toe against something on the road. A large rock, no doubt. I glared down at the offending object, and was a bit surprised to find a large blue chunk of aqua stain. Much as I had seen the stuff at the Dwarven camp, I hadn't actually occasion to hold a piece before. As annoyed as I was stubbing my toe on it, I had to admire it was a beautiful thing to find in such an empty land. It had a scaly quality to it, almost like snakeskin, but was way too hard and thick to be anything other than a rock. I wondered what its value would be. Surely it had fallen from the caravan. Perhaps if I brought it up to Sam Decare, he would see fit to let me travel with him again. With that idea in mind, I once again picked up the pace towards the caravan where it waited next to the old crooked tree. Smoke from the fire carried the fragrant smell of cooked meat, and I anticipated the possibility of a full meal. Perhaps the aqua stain would be worth that much to Samuel. I found myself trying to think of ways to haggle about it, trying to think of all the things I'd seen the dwarves working on. If I could convince Decare that this rock had more value. I paused in my thought. The smell of meat cooking mingled with something much less pleasant, and I looked up to discover the source. The aqua stain tumbled from my fingers, landing on the ground with a muted thud. It was the stuff of nightmares. Throat slit. The 6 guards lay neatly in a row, looking as though they'd been executed, rather than died in battle. The caravan had been left to stand, but the wagons had been ransacked. Swinging from a trio of ropes. Each one hung around the neck of a caravan driver. In the middle, Samuel Decare, face twisted and distorted, swung to and fro. The only solace was that the horses seemed to have escaped, for I saw no sign of them. I felt myself dry heaving. The urge to vomit was there, but I had nothing to throw up. Tacked to Samuel Decare's tunic was a piece of parchment with a message scrawled upon it. I ripped the note from the dead man's chest, my hand shaking, and I nearly dropped it. Unable to continue looking at the swinging body of the merchant, I turned away, my entire body quivering, and focused on the words, trying to make sense of them. I might as well have been stared into stone, for all the secrets they gave up. I was no less illiterate today than I had been the day before. I crumpled it up and shoved it in my pocket. I didn't need a note to get the message. All 9 men, guards and drivers included, had been amputated, their left arms removed. They had protected the one-armed Scarecrow and had been punished in kind. The smell of cooked meat came from the smoldering fireplace. I didn't need to look to know what I smelt, but I looked anyway. How could I look away? It was too gruesome to ignore. Some were now nothing but bits of blackened bones. Others still had flesh hanging from them. Not knowing what else to do, I kicked sand into the fire pit, choking out the last of the coals. It was the closest thing to a burial I could offer these poor men. The fire was old, but I had no reason to believe I was safe. After this, how could I ever feel safe again? I had to keep moving, and the open road no longer felt like an option. Feeling like a thief, I quickly rummaged through the caravan, looking for anything edible or drinkable. I found only leather water skin and a few morsels of stale bread. The wagon train had been thoroughly cleared out, and that which wasn't taken was ruined beyond use. I retrieved the chunk of aquastain from where I'd dropped it. There were empty packs, but someone had cut the straps, and they too were useless. I spared a moment to evaluate the stone. Who knew what it might be worth? It could be my lifeline if I could get it back to the city. But carrying it now, in my other hand, it would just slow me down. Once again, I let the large chunk of aquastain tumble from my fingertips, and this time, it stayed where it fell.
Follow our links below for more content, and subscribe.